Since 2015, JavaScript has continually received annual updates to the specification. Now, it's through these annual updates that we get brand new capabilities and features, and personally I think this is one of the reasons why JavaScript has become so successful. The latest version of JavaScript was released in June 2022, imaginatively called JavaScript ES2022, or otherwise affectionately known as ES13. In it, it's got some pretty nifty features that I think you should be aware of. What I'm going to do in this video is go through every single one of these features so you can learn about using it today. Now, the nice thing about a lot of these features are they're already built into all modern browsers, like the Chromes, your Firefoxes, so you can literally get started writing this stuff today. If you're anything like me, then you'll likely find the easiest way to learn a new feature is to play around with a bit of code. Now, obviously, trying to copy code from a YouTube video is not ideal, and this is why I've created this demo website and accompanying project in GitHub so you can play around with everything that you're about to see. Now, in order to get access to this, super simple, head over to my GitHub, which is John D. Jones-POC, proof of concept. Go to repositories, find the ES2022 features, click on that, and then you can either clone all the code yourself, or you can play around with the working website from this link here. Boom. Out of all the new ES22 features that I'm going to share with you in this video, by far I think the most important capability to master is the ability to smash on the subscribe button and help me out with the YouTube algorithm by clicking on the like button. Now, if you haven't come across this channel before, I am John and I release new videos every Sunday on web development, C# and JavaScript. So if you want to up your JavaScript game, then you know what to do, click on subscribe. Now, I know you've done that, so as a little thank you, I'm going to show you a picture of a walrus. So enough of that, let's start drilling down into what's new in ES 2022. The first new feature of ES 2022 we're going to look at is a really cool function which is called @. Now, @ is going to make your life a lot easier whenever you need to pick an item out of an array, or say pick a character within a string. Now, within JavaScript, it's obviously always been possible to pick things from an array. And let's have a look at how traditionally we used to do that so we can see where @ improves things. I've got these three examples, number array, character array, and a string, just to prove it works in a multiple different variety of situations. Now, in order to pick an item from an array, we'd simply pass in the position in the array that we want to pick our item. In this example, I'm using 3, wrapped with the bracket notation. Remember, in JavaScript, we start counting at 0. So what we're going to say is 0, 1, 2, 3. This example is going to return us 4. Now, let's say we want to do a bit of logic when we're picking. In order to do this, we'd have to write a line similar to this one here, where I'm using the dot length property, and I'm using a minus. In this example, dot length is going to give us 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then it's 4 minus 3, so 0, 1, 2, 3. So this one is going to return us 3. The line below is doing exactly the same, but instead of using length here, we're using the slice function. Using slice, we can just go minus 3, so 0, minus 1, minus 2, minus 3. This is going to give us the value 3. In essence, these two lines are doing the same thing. However, the code is pretty bloated. And again, we could do exactly the same if we wanted to pick a character from this string. Now let's have a look at things within the new world by using our beloved @ function. Our code is way more concise in this example. Get going with it. All we need to do is chain it at the end of our array or maybe a string. And all it takes is a single input, and that is either a positive number or a negative number. When you pass in a positive number, it's going to count things forward. And you guessed it, negative goes reverse. Let's have a look at these 3 examples. In this example, we're going to pick the third character. Remember, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. This one is going to return minus 2. So we start at 0, we have minus 1, we have minus 2, 4. And just to prove it works, on a string, we're going to do @1. This is going to be the second character here, which is E. @ was probably my second favorite feature within ES13. Now I'm going to close the video with a banger with the most impactful thing that I think has changed within this release. In between, we're going to cover some of the minor changes, which probably isn't going to rock your world. However, they are super useful. And the first one we're going to look at is called hasOwn. The hasOwn property meant to be an improvement on how we can determine if an object contains a property. Historically, we would do this type of checkup using either hasOwn property or the in operator. Let's have a look at both of these in action so we can see where the differences are. I've created a House of the Dragons object. Yeah, cool, yeah. In here you can see we've got forename, surname, title, allegiance, and I've also created an extended object called House of the Dragons Extended. The prototype's been set to the original. We've got this race property here as well. Let's ignore this one for the time being. Now, when it comes to checking if an object contains a property, we could use hasOwn property. We're passing in forename. Yes, this has a forename property, and we can do the same using in. So has House of the Dragons in forename. Yes, it has. Boom. Now, this also works when it comes to inheritance. Now, hasOwn property, as the name suggests, means that the item itself needs to contain that property. Now, in this example, hasOwn property for House of the Dragons Extended, even though it's got the prototype, does it actually have the forename property itself? No, it doesn't. This is going to turn false. In works regardless of if it's on the current object or if it's in the inheritance chain. In this example, forename exists here. Job is a good one. Now, hasOwn property can be done on the object. And there's an example of it's here. So we can just do object.hasOwn, and then we can pass in the object we want to look at, and we can then pass in the property we want to match against. Now, I think this code is slightly nicer than this one here. The one kind of main benefit of hasOwn is apparently that some people might accidentally overwrite the hasOwn method. Now, if you're creating this House of the Dragon Extended here, you define a method called hasOwn. Regardless of what you call, this is now going to be returning false. This is always going to return false because I'm setting it manually here. Now, let's be honest. In production, in the real world, what sort of numpty is going to override hasOwn property? Probably might happen for specific use cases. For general day-to-day development, this is never going to happen. But apparently, this is kind of the main benefit of using hasOwn. I like the notation myself, but the idea is that you're less likely to overwrite the object hasOwn property, or method, should I say, compared to actually using something called hasOwn property on your own custom objects. I think it's a bit of a stretch. People are going to do this accidentally, but that is the selling point of this new function. The next improvement to the JavaScript language is shown on the screen in front of us, and I'm wondering, can you spot it without me having to call it? Can you? Now, the obvious answer here is obviously look at the await statement at the top. Previously, in other versions of JavaScript, if you're creating a module and you want to use the await keyword, it has to be inside of an async function. And previously, you could not put the await keyword here. Now, just in case you've forgotten, a module is something where we're using the export here and we're passing it out. If we go to my HTML page, go to the top, you can see that I'm importing my module right from here. And that's all it is. This is an improvement to how we use await within a module. It makes sense to me. It will make life a little bit easier. Is it a groundbreaker? No. I think you're going to find this next feature really handy when you're debugging errors. Now, the new property is called cause and is an extension to the error object. Let's have a look at traditionally how we might have bubbled some exception messages up in our application. In this example, you can see that we have a method called firstErrorOriginal, and this little scallywag, he's the cause of this error. Now, our second method here is calling our first method, and it's throwing its own exception method. And finally, in our third method down the bottom, we're calling the second method, and the third method is also throwing its own exception method. Now, what do you think is going to be thrown or displayed if we run this code? And we can prove this. So what do you think the message is going to be? Is it going to be first error, second error, or third error? Console, pull this up so you can see it, type in the example, And as you can see, we've got error, third error. And within a real life scenario, this type of nesting is very possible. Also, it can be very difficult to debug real world production applications, especially if they've been obfuscated, when you can't actually tell the cause of the original message. And this is where cause comes in. Refactoring that old existing code with our new property, you can see that everything's pretty similar. We have our first method. This time though, we're passing in a cause with our exception. Now our second method is calling the first one and we're rendering out that cause message. We're also bubbling up the original cause message from this extension here. And then in our third method, you can see that we're calling our second method, and this is just simply rendering out the cause message. Now, what do you think is going to happen in this example? I'm sure you can guess this one. Let's go back to our console. If I do error cause, you can see that the message now is error third error 1. As you can see, when you're actually trying to debug an application, this is going to be super handy because you're going to be able to give your application, your users, your developers more information about what exactly has gone wrong, which is going to save you debugging time, and hopefully this will help solve hundreds of millions of bugs in the world. Now we're going to wrap the video up with my favorite feature. I'm going to start looking at a C# class, oddly enough. Now, if you haven't come from an object-oriented background, then you won't be used to different types of access modifiers within a class. Now, in C# we have features like static, we have features like private, and we have features like public. And in JavaScript, we don't have that same level of abstraction. Until now. Even though technically JavaScript is not an official object-oriented language, it's now possible to emulate most of the features that these languages provide. And let's have a look at some of these examples so you can understand what you can get. Now, the first example is traditional JavaScript object orientation. We're defining a class right here. It's called shape normal. It's got these two properties, height and width, and I'm newing it up underneath, and then I'm setting a property like this. Now, sometimes when we're writing code, we want to make sure that we have the right level encapsulation. So we want to make sure that certain things within our objects can't be accessed by outside parties to make sure we have a nice abstraction. Now, this is where private variables comes into play. Now, in JavaScript, it's now possible to define private properties and private functions using the hash operator. And in this example, you can see I've got a new object called shape private. We've got the hash in front of this property. We've got the hash in front of this property called width. We've also got the hash in front of this private method. Now, when we're saying something is private, what we're saying is that only code inside of the class can access it. So moving this point in the constructor, you can see that I'm accessing this private variable and I'm doing something with it. And I could copy this into, say, this function here if I wanted to. It would not cause me any bother whatsoever. I can do all of this kind of good stuff. Boom. Now, the great thing about private comes when you're starting to try and access these objects externally. And let's have a look at this. So I've newed up my new shape private. And as you can probably see, hopefully, I'm getting a load of red warning errors. Some things have gone amiss. And that is because if I put my mouse over it, you'll see that property height is not accessible outside class shape private because it has a private identifier. And these are exactly the same for the width, which is a property, and the private method, which is a function. The private function then is going to make your classes more secure, and it's going to allow you to give a better level of encapsulation when it comes to deciding internal state management. That is not all though. We also have static. Now, static in object-oriented languages, often it's not recommended to use it except for in special circumstances. However, we also have now this in the JavaScript. Let's have a look at our same example again. And this time you can see that I'm defining things as static. So I've got my shape static class. I've got a static height property, a static width method, and a static method. It's called private, but it's not actually private because I haven't put the hash there. Now, the interesting thing about static is it can mean we don't need to use the new operator. And this can be really handy in certain situations. So let's copy this bit of code, and this is how we access those properties. We do not use the new keyword at all. To access this height property, I use the type, and then I can access the property directly because it's marked as static. And this is the benefit of static. So if you've got loads of content, maybe it never changes, loads of settings, that kind of stuff, using static can be really handy. And this is a massive improvement, especially when it comes to architecture, making sure that your code has nice abstractions, making sure that other code doesn't actually fiddle with your state so things accidentally break. By making use of public, private and static, you now have so much more control, and this is a much needed feature in JavaScript, I think, and this is something that I will be using pretty much on a daily basis. So I recommend you check this stuff out because it's going to make your code and your logic much more efficient and optimal. That concludes my favourite 5 features of ES 2022. And personally, I think there's some really good stuff in there. Now, what do you think? Do you agree with me? Are these your favourite features? Do you think I've left one out and you're sat at home weeping away because I haven't included it? Let me know in your thoughts below. It's also that time for me to remind you, if you haven't already, click on the subscribe button and click on the like button. It takes me a long time to do all this research, put it in a nice easy format so you didn't have to do it yourself. You don't want to miss out on this kind of content, do you? So click subscribe and help me out with the YouTube algorithm. Otherwise, if you want to stay up to date with some of the stuff I do a weekly newsletter, which is linked to below. Otherwise, hope you're having an epic day wherever you are in this beautiful world. Until next time, happy coding.